Welcome to Cardinals Cover 2 with Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki. Cardinals Cover 2 is brought to you by Arizona Cardinals Podcasts. Visit azcardinals.com/podcasts. From the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center, here's Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki.
Well, we have reached the end of the week. Happy Friday to everyone out there. And I don't know about you, MJ, but this is it for me.
That's right.
I'm off next week.
Yeah. Well, you'll be back soon, though.
Yes.
You already?
I have to report like everyone else.
That's
does.
right. You going to do the conditioning test?
Nah, that's a negative.
So you're in Hawaii. Now you're going to the Bay Area,
Yes.
and you're from that area.
Yes.
So
See some family.
I see. Perfect. Yeah, I mean, next week the rookies come back.
Yes.
Man, they didn't have any time off.
Yeah, you
And the
blink.
rookies. Come on, Mike.
Well, they really haven't had any time off since the draft, or even before this draft.
Yeah, but what were they
working,
doing after that bowl game until the draft?
Working out for the combine.
Yeah, and getting patted on the back
Well,
and
that's
going on
true.
that banquet circuit, nice steak, and a la carte menus and everything else. But hey, that's part of the process.
Exactly. Then the real work begins. And with that, about the work beginning on this Friday edition of Cards Cover 2 as we take off, let you know what's ahead on the show here this afternoon. Kyler Murray and his tinted visor are making headlines again. We finish off our individual position group overview with a look at linebackers and defensive backs. Then it's our last stop around the NFC West. The 49ers take center stage. And, of course, your questions via social media. And for those watching us on Facebook Live, use the hashtag CardsCover2. Hashtag CardsCover2. Love hearing from the Bird Gang. We'll do that a little bit later on here on the show here this afternoon. And, again, we are getting very, very close to the starts of training camp. In fact, that is our big news of the day. Next week, in fact, 1 week from today, quarterbacks and injured players report here to the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals training facility. The rookies will be in on Wednesday. Then the entire team reports to State Farm Stadium and Cards Camp on the 24th. The first practice is the 25th. That's a Thursday, the first of 4 straight days of open practices at State Farm Stadium, the most of any NFC team. And MJ, 14 open practices, among the most of any NFL team.
Yeah, and we're always curious when you get a different regime in the practice schedule and how many times they're going to be in full pads and when they're going to break camp. 14, considering that they want to keep this thing close to the vest when it comes to their offense now. Obviously, you got to work on things when it comes to timing. They'll continue to do installs. But I'm excited. I mean, we talked about this earlier in the week where the NFL are going to broadcast not only locally on Channel 12, but 3 national games. Couple on the NFL Network for those out of the market, and then obviously the game against the Raiders on ESPN. And, every year you have national media come through here, the Peter Kings, and, at the NFL Network we usually have Steve Weiss or Omar Ruiz, and then, get the Pete Priscos. But I think this year we're going to have more national media just because of the hype and the unknown with Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray.
Yeah, and we look at open practices around NFL training camps. Pro Football Talk has been doing a good job of kind of keeping track because fan access is important. But amongst the teams that have more open practices than the Cardinals, how about the Browns, Panthers, Ravens, and Steelers, all with those with 15. Vikings, Colts, and Packers with 16. Broncos with 19. Cowboys have upwards of 20, but of course they go to California for a little bit. So Cardinals in the upper third of the NFL as far as opening up their doors to their fans to watch training camp practices.
Yeah, when you mentioned the Broncos, obviously the late Pat Bowlen is going in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, so that's the reason why they're actually, I'm sure their rookies will be there soon, and then their veterans will report next week, and that's that kind of dreaded fifth preseason game. So don't know how much we'll see of the starters, but obviously they're very excited about Joe Flacco and his upside, and then bringing a guy like Vic Fangio, a defensive-minded head coach. He hired Mike Munchak for the offensive line. They're in a tough division with the Chiefs and Chargers, and we don't know what the Raiders are going to look like. So it'd be interesting to see, how things shake out. But I'm looking forward to training camp and obviously the upcoming season.
And you can follow along with Cardinals training camp, the hashtag CardsCamp for all of your news and information. And, of course, go online, azcardinals.com/CardsCamp for your complete schedule of open practices. All right, the NFL Network has started looking ahead towards training camps. And when it came time to talk about the Cardinals, this is what Maurice Jones-Drew had to say on NFL Total Access.
Arizona Cardinals, new head coach, the number 1 pick in the draft, the new franchise quarterback. Fill in the blank for me here. Okay. Kyler Murray must show blank in training camp.
I'll say decisiveness, understanding where the ball should be in certain coverages. Now, you have an offensive coach who likes to throw the ball all over the yard. So you got to make sure you make the correct reads all the time. And then when you use your legs, use them the right way. Don't run and get hit. Watch the guy up a little north of you, Russell Wilson, slide, get out of bounds, use your athleticism. But he has to be decisive in where he's throwing the ball, when he's throwing it, and how he's throwing it to the receivers in order for them to feel comfortable going into week 1.
Going to be real interesting to see how many reps they give him in preseason games because he's the franchise quarterback. You want to protect him.
He's going to play.
But he's a rookie. You need to see him, and you need to get him up to that game speed.
Yeah, he's going to play. And it sounds like Jones-Drew shares my opinion on how the Cardinals should handle Kyler Murray. Of course, I think we're in the minority as far as how many snaps Murray does play, but I'm of the opinion that he needs to play and play a lot because this is a brand new experience and a lot is on his shoulders.
You know, I liked Maurice Jones-Drew when he was a player. Now that he's doing media, and I think he's definitely improved. About a week ago, he rated the top running backs in the NFL, and he had David Johnson 25th, and that's a complete joke. I don't think about decisiveness is going to be an issue. He already knows the offense, and yeah, on paper you think he does need to play, but they're going to limit his reps. So I disagree with Maurice Jones-Drew on a lot of things he said.
Well, and command of the offense, which I think he already has, but giving that confidence to his other teammates along the offense to kind of help them along and then encourage them, because not only is a lot on his shoulders, but guys are going to be coming to him a lot, I think, just because it's basically his offense tailored to him and what he ran a little bit of at Oklahoma.
Well, we all know that when you put the pads on, it separates guys, but I think he's earned the respect from his teammates based on what he showed in off-season workouts. Now, again, he's going to have to go out there and prove it on the field. But again, at the same time, I think he's further along than a lot of guys. I mean, when Larry made that comment, you and I, our ears perked up because it was true. He's been in this system. So there'll be a learning curve, and there are going to be some adjustments. And again, I disagree with Maurice Jones-Drew about him taking hits. Everyone thinks this is going to be RG3 all over again. That's not true. First of all, that was a zone read, and he was getting hit like a rag down, and the Redskins didn't protect him. This is more like Russell Wilson, Baker Mayfield, and Patrick Mahomes. So he's got the ability to escape the pocket, make throws on the run with that arm strength and that accuracy. And again, I'm going back to his baseball background where he can do that pop-up slide, run out of bounds, play for another down. And it's okay to punt in this league. Put your defense on the field and try to win field position.
More Kyler Murray talk, and this made the rounds yesterday on NFL Network. The tinted visor that Murray wears attached to his helmet. Kyle Brandt from Good Morning Football brought this up a few weeks ago, and it kind of took on a life of its own.
When Kyler came out on the field like that, when Kyler came out on the field like that and he was wearing the visor, we started freaking out about it because it looked so unusual and he looked so cool. And something flew out of my mouth that had ramifications as usual. Check this out. Am I to understand that Kyler Murray's going to wear a dark visor on the field? I mean, that is so that is like go back to like Jim McMahon. Maybe it's an unheard of look, but I love it. Is that going to be what we get from him? Because I'm here for the accessories. At baseball, it's fine, but that visor is awesome.
One day in, that's what it looks like.
Oh my God! Never mind the jersey. Can I get a helmet? I want a Kyler Murray helmet. All right. So blah 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 blah. Me popping off. Whatever goes out into the ether. A couple weeks back, arrived here at the Good Morning Football mailroom. You will not believe what showed up. This came. Kyler Murray's real helmet with Kyler's autograph. How cool is this? If you were just a football geek like me looking at this, we got the number 1 on the back, the NFL 100 decal. Look inside this thing. It is so revolutionary, so beautiful. The visor is absolutely gorgeous. Shocked to receive this, absolutely thrilled. How did this happen? I'm glad you asked. I also got a note from the Arizona Cardinals, and inside a handwritten note from the brand new head coach of the Cardinals. Kyle, ask and you shall receive, my friend. Just don't make my guy Peter too jealous with it. Love the show. Go Cards. Cliff Kingsbury, guys.
Cool is that?
Is that not the coolest thing ever? I am so fired up by this.
Pretty awesome what the Cardinals did, first of all. Second of all, we got this lovely studio here, and I would love a Kyler Murray helmet right there in front of you, MJ.
Well, we got, advertising up there, so we can put it right over here.
Yeah, there you go, yeah.
I've wore a helmet in the past.
That's true, you
Listen, Good Morning Football is, I'm sure every team has it on in their offices. General managers, obviously, is clued into the National Football League, breaking stories. Kyle Brandt, I'm a big fan of. He's come a long way. He used to be the producer for Jim Rome, and then he finally got an opportunity. He does a show like on Friday nights. I don't know if it got canceled, but it was like going into the vault, and he would show a lot of plays from previous years, and it was kind of, throwaway on a Friday. But unfortunately, Murray's not going to be able to wear that during the season.
I'm glad you brought that up because this became a storyline. Kyle Lidegaard wrote about it on azcardinals.com. The headline of the story was, quote, "Tinted visor craze hits Cardinals," unquote. And in this story, almost a dozen players Kyle listed that wear or wore the visors during offseason work. David Johnson, Christian Kirk, Patrick Peterson, Terrell Suggs, DJ Swearinger, Byron Murphy, Jordan Hicks, Robert Alford. You kind of get the idea, but tinted visors were outlawed, banned, or whatever you want to call it, back in 1998. You can wear clear visors, but the key here is you need to petition the NFL and you need a doctor's note in order for that to happen. So you won't see Murray or any other Cardinal player in a tinted visor, perhaps a clear visor. But the reason this kind of took on a life of its own this offseason is because last year, Cardinals were not allowed to wear the tinted visor in practice.
Yes, and Baker Mayfield's wearing it, and then you got Patrick Mahomes, and they went from a clear. Mahomes was wearing a kind of like a Chiefs red, kind of maybe to block out some of the sun. I think it was a swag thing, obviously, but I think you need to get, as you pointed out, you need a doctor's note from an optometrist that whether you have LASIK vision or you're going to get surgery at some point, or you wear contacts or you wear glasses, and some quarterbacks have wore goggles in the past, including running backs like Eric Dickerson. So as long as you get approved by an optometrist, you could wear the clear. I don't know if he's going to do that.
Yeah, here was Kingsbury's quote this past offseason about the tinted visor. "It's bright every day. I feel their pain. I wear sunglasses so they can wear visors," unquote. And then once that kind of got wind, then more and more players all of a sudden started showing up in practice with these tinted visors. But again, can't do it in the regular season, and of course a lot of the Cardinals games are indoors, so it doesn't factor in, but certainly fun to see, and props to the Cardinals for doing that as well for Good Morning Football. By the way, we mentioned this on Wednesday's show, but Murray, as we follow up, did not win an ESPY on Wednesday night. He was up for Best College Athlete. Duke Zion Williamson was the winner. He was in attendance, but didn't see Murray. But again, props to Kyler Murray. Again, Heisman Trophy, Oklahoma, outstanding college season. Now it's on to the NFL season.
Now, you never wonder if they get wind that they're not going to win. If they do, then they got to tape a video if you're not going to show up. So if he probably thought, I'm not going to win, so I'm good. I got to get ready for camp.
Yeah, and enjoy my remaining days before I got to report.
I'm sure he wouldn't be on a commercial flight to LA. He's probably on a private plane.
Yeah.
But I guess the after parties are really something to be part of.
Well, we'll have to figure that out because Chandler Jones was in attendance. He was with his brother, John Jones, the UFC light heavyweight champion, and a couple of pictures posted on Chandler's Twitter account. He was photographed with Russell Wilson, Odell Beckham Jr., and of course, Chandler Jones and Russell Wilson, they kind of meet a lot during the regular season.
Yeah, Russell Wilson, they showed him getting ready. He went with the curly look. Boy, Sierra's changed his life. I guess it would do it to a lot of males.
He's had a heck of an offseason. I mean, he's got the richest contract among quarterbacks in the NFL and amongst any player in the NFL. So I think he did all right.
Who's more popular as of today? Arthur doesn't get enough pub because, he's bounced around a little bit, obviously playing for the Patriots, winning the Super Bowl there, and putting up 17 sacks in 2016. But Jones, that sport is now on ESPN. Obviously, you got to have ESPN Plus to watch some of the the women's and the men's fights. But who's more popular today, Chandler or John?
It's a good question. My guess is
You're going to go with your Syracuse guy. I know it.
Honestly, I believe more people are familiar and know about John Jones because he is
not wearing a face mask.
Yes, that's one. And two, he's a lot outspoken.
Yeah.
And Chandler Jones is not outspoken at all.
I sent you a video earlier.
Yes, that was funny. Yeah, TMZ caught up with Chandler Jones in Los Angeles.
He said he would beat his brother up.
Yeah. We might have to work that out somehow.
He said it wouldn't even be an issue. He said, he weighs 235 at weigh-in, then he weighs 205 in the fight. He said my arms are longer.
Yeah, taller, heavier.
Yeah, and he said
according to Chandler, stronger.
He said I would wrestle him.
Fighting words.
Man, did you see both of those guys leave on wheelchairs in the press conference? I mean, your shins are not made for that.
Well, it's tough.
I mean, first of all, there's no meat on your skin on your shins. They would break me in a heartbeat.
Well, there's just no meat on you, period.
Okay, Grialou, time to move on.
One other news item. Larry Fitzgerald, Patrick Peterson playing in the American Century Celebrity Golf Tournament in Lake Tahoe. In fact, Fitz and Peterson still on the course. And Peterson right now tied for third. Fitz tied for 21st. Carson Palmer is playing as well, and he is tied for 6th. It's a first-round action of this 54-hole tournament. These guys do it every year, it seems like, but a lot of fun. Peterson is playing with wide receivers Adam Thielen and Golden Tate, which is interesting. And
is he going to cover those guys?
Yeah, no, exactly. Fitz paired with Jerry Rice and Ray Allen.
See, he's always coming to the backseat of Jerry Rice. Ray Allen, obviously a great NBA career.
I have to look what the leaderboard is on what Rice finishes
and
with
Palmer,
today,
I want to say he was with Brett Saberhagen and Steve Young.
Yeah.
And Herman Edwards, head coach of ASU, he WD'd with withdrawn. He did have off-season knee surgery. He was there. Maybe he got to the driving range and said, I want to tap out. But he got a free trip.
That's true. You can catch those guys this weekend, Saturday and Sunday on NBC. Again, it's a fun tournament. There's some competition, but a lot of fun as well.
Yeah, usually like guys like Billy Joe Tolliver, Rick Rhoden, some of these quarterbacks and pitchers. Tony Romo's up there on the leaderboard. Jeremy Roenick's pretty good. Carson said that they do play for skins on the course, though.
Oh, I can't imagine some of the trash talk and just some of the conversation back and forth. And
how much money those guys got?
On the side. Carson can afford it now. I mean, he's got nothing else going on in his life.
He was on Sirius this morning, and the host asked him, have you been practicing for this? He said, yeah, 364 days a year. And he's like, no, but I thought I would do much better than last year. And then they asked him about the Ring of Honor. He said, you're really looking forward. And then they asked him about Kyler Murray, and he said, listen, they made the right decision moving on from Josh Rosen.
That's right now everyone's on board, and it's because of the excitement level and the prospects of what this offense could look like versus what it did look like in 2018.
Well, I mean, the thing is, and we've talked about this at length, and I think it's worthy of mentioning. I mean, when you hire Cliff Kingsbury and you have an idea that possibly Murray's going to declare, and at the time he was probably committed to baseball until he found out he's going to be the first pick in the draft. So I think Rosen would have succeeded, but to me, he's an acquired taste. You need protection. You need really good coaching. Like any other quarterback to succeed, but he really needs it. And I'm curious to see how he pans out in Miami.
We are broadcasting here on this Friday afternoon from the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center, and, of course, doing so as we always do in our Bose QC35s. If you're interested in getting a pair of these unbelievable headphones, go to Bose.com for more information. And a reminder, if you happen to ever miss a show here, you can download it as a podcast via Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play Music, TuneIn, and SoundCloud. And don't forget, all of your favorite Cardinals podcasts can be found at azcardinals.com/podcast. azcardinals.com, also your source and your site for the entire training camp schedule. Of course, we talked about that earlier in the show, but again, up on azcardinals.com/cardscamp for the details. Cardinals also doing great work in the community and now asking for you to get involved as well. In honor of its 100th season, the NFL is inviting fans to join the Cardinals players, and the other teams in a volunteer initiative called Huddle for 100. The goal of the campaign is for NFL fans to donate 100 million minutes of time to help shape what our communities will look like for the next 100 years. Those fans that do donate will be entered for a chance to win a VIP experience at Super Bowl 54 in Miami, signed memorabilia, and other great prizes. azcardinals.com/Cardinals Huddle for 100. has all your information. As we continue here on this Friday afternoon, last day of the work week, let's finish off our position overview, highlighting the team's individual position groups. Today we have the linebackers and defensive backs. We'll start with the linebackers. There are 14 in the room. That is the most of any position group on the defense. And, of course, your expected starters, Chandler Jones, Hassan Reddick, Jordan Hicks, Terrell Suggs. Then off the bench, Brooks Reed, Dennis Gardeck, Cameron Malveaux, Zeke Turner. I will pay attention to undrafted rookie free agent Dante Booker out of Ohio State. I had a chance to talk with him during those 2 weeks in June in which the rookies were here. Impressed by him as a person and impressed by him as well, the opportunity he has, and, of course, the connection at Ohio State with Bill Davis, the linebackers coach. So plenty of names in that room, but a lot of the attention is going to be applied to the outside linebackers, and that's where you've got Chandler Jones and Terrell Suggs. But Jones certainly anxious about going back to a 3-4. The 41 sacks he's had since arriving with the Cardinals in 2016 is the most in the NFL. And the big thing with Jones is just how different he looks compared to a year ago. He has slimmed down, I think, 15, 20 pounds lighter.
At least.
And no longer in that three-point stance. He can stand up and perhaps get to that quarterback or ball carrier a little bit quicker.
Yeah, and we talked about it last time he played in a 3-4. He led the league in sacks with 17, and he's a guy that can get to the quarterback. I want to see him make more impact splash plays. Guys like Von Miller and Khalil Mack, just to name a few, not saying he can't do it. Sometimes you get double-teamed, sometimes you get chipped. But I like to see them move him around. And I think this is probably one of the most improved positions on the roster. Obviously, you had Chandler Jones in the mix. You go out and get T-Sizzle. He played in 72% of the snaps. Brooks Reed, curious to see how much he's able to do in training camp. And then, you look at some of the other guys, Hassan Reddick and Jordan Hicks, and between Hicks and Alford, I thought they were one of the better signings when you give these guys 3-year deals. So I think they'll keep 4 on the outside. Obviously, Chandler Jones, Terrell Suggs, Brooks Reed, and then Cameron Malveaux possibly in the mix, but I wouldn't put him in the guarantee. I think they still could address that position, whether it's during training camp or waiver wire claims. And then I think they keep 5 inside linebackers. When you start looking at that from a standpoint of,
yeah, we'll get to the inside linebackers, but when you're talking about the combination of Jones and Suggs, and I know he is getting up there in age and number of years, talking about Suggs, this will be his 17th season, but he can still go. He can still produce. They might have to kind of figure out, monitor, if you will, for lack of a better term, snap count, because you want him to be at his optimum at critical points of the ball game. But you have those guys as your bookends, and maybe now Jones has a little bit freer of a path to the quarterback or ball carrier because there's someone on the opposite, much like when it was Jones and Marcus Golden.
Well, I mean, Chandler's already told us, obviously, Suggs played with his brother Arthur. He bounced around a little bit. He was with the Colts and then Ravens, and he said that, he was able to get his phone number and learn, why he stands different when he's rushing the passer, and there's things that he can learn from Chandler. So I think if you're an offensive coordinator, when you break the huddle, that quarterback has to ID where Chandler Jones is and then where Suggs is, because Suggs is going to win some matchups just being an experienced, savvy guy. He's going to beat you with technique, he's going to beat you with smarts, and he's going to beat you with physicality. So I'm looking forward to seeing that tandem. And then, we'll see about the rotation. But as you pointed out numerous times, 72% of the snaps, and he was on a pretty good defense there. So I'd be curious to see what that number is, but you want to make sure these guys are fresh and get a good, nice rotation late in the year.
You talk about the tandem of Jones and Suggs. How about the tandem of Hicks and Reddick on the inside? And as we focus on Jordan Hicks, one of those moves in the offseason, again, it didn't get a lot of attention nationally compared to the other linebackers that did sign in free agency. It didn't get the big money dollars compared to some of the other guys. He did get paid handsomely, and I think, knock on wood, if healthy, there's your 3-down linebacker, your quarterback of the defense who can get everyone else in position and be that guy, because he has shown, when healthy, that he is not only able to get tackles, but interceptions, passes defense, and knock that ball loose.
Yeah, and the key is staying healthy. We can say the same thing with DJ Humphries, obviously Justin Pugh and Marcus Gilbert, but obviously these guys are going out there not to get hurt. And so, yeah, he's going to be. I mean, he's wearing Darrell Washington's number. I don't know if he has the speed sideline to sideline, but I like what you said. He'll have the green sticker on his helmet. He'll be making the calls. He'll be the Vance Joseph on the field, and then obviously try to get guys lined up. And if they can somehow get some pressure up the middle, space eaters with Corey Peters, Darius Philon, and Rodney Gunter, he should be able to come in and get some tackles and maybe possibly tackle for losses. And we know that when he gets his ball in his hands, he has the ability to, because I think sometimes the quarterback doesn't see him in the middle of the field, and usually that's an easy throw, whether it's a tight end or a shallow or a crossing route from a slot receiver. He can get an interception there, and that will go a long way, forcing turnovers, give the offense short field to play with.
And he'll be a big help to the guy lining next to him and Hassan Reddick, and this is a big season for Reddick. One, he's kind of back at one position. You hope that is the case, that he is going to be just focused on the inside linebacker, not have to bounce around outside, rush the quarterback. He can still rush the quarterback even as an inside linebacker, but just get noticed as far as just that one position and then go from there. But he has already talked about, Reddick has, about the communication between he and Hicks, that they've only been together for, a couple of months, yet it seems like it's been a couple of years that they've played. That's how well they get along on the field.
Well, I think he's finally comfortable, and you could see that they've definitely, hit it off initially. And, I anticipate Reddick's going to be a three-down backer. I think he can cover tight ends down the field in the seam, and then, some of these running backs that get the ball in the flat in the screen game, I think he can make those tackles. And it wouldn't surprise me if they have him blitz up the middle based on numbers and obviously protection. So I finally feel like he's going to settle into his own. Maybe it's his breakout year, but I thought he made strides last year when he got a chance to play.
Well, he's had how many different defensive coordinators? I mean, every single year in the league, he's had a different defensive coordinator and been asked to do different things. But the guys are very high on him, not only players, but the coaches as well. Vance Joseph has talked very highly of him. Bill Davis has talked very highly of Hassan Reddick. In fact, he called Reddick and Hicks, quote, exactly what you're looking for, unquote, as an inside linebacker. He said that on a recent episode of Cardinals Underground. Here's more from Davis talking about the development that he's seen so far from Hassan Reddick.
In the world of linebackers, the hardest move is to move inside. When you can go inside to outside, and it's not that hard because everybody's on one side of you. When you take what Hassan was in college and move him inside, it takes at least a year to train him just to see the different blocking schemes, the down pullers, and all the things that go with it. So Hassan is actually in a great spot to take a big leap because he is now comfortable and he does have experience as an inside backer.
He freely admits the pressure and the spotlight is on him this year. Is that something you have to navigate with him and manage? As his position coach, do you have to make sure he doesn't put too much pressure on himself?
I won't allow him to. We have too many athletes around him. There's really is a very talented group with a lot of people. He's not the only talented player on the defense. I mean, we're expecting a lot of other guys. So he doesn't really have to carry the weight of his own. He doesn't have to feel that pressure, and I'll make sure he doesn't feel the pressure. He's just going to go out there and play fast and with a clear mind and run and hit.
And a big reason why there's not a ton of pressure, the team is not going to put pressure on Reddick, is because there are guys that they are high on, Dennis Gardeck, Zeke Turner, two guys that were huge on special teams and now trying to make that leap, if you will, to the defensive side of the ball, specifically Gardeck, who, again, Joseph has been high on, and we've heard Bill Davis be high on Gardeck, but this is their year now. I mean, you spend a season on special teams and then finally kind of get your feet wet with a new coaching staff and show them in the offseason, like, hey, you can count on me for a handful of snaps, if you will, defensively.
Yeah, he didn't play a single defensive snap, but he cut his teeth playing on special teams. And I do think they'll keep 5 inside linebackers. Obviously, you got your starters in Hicks and Reddick. And then I think Zeke Turner's kind of a hybrid. He's more of a safety, but he can play in the box. Also plays on special teams, Dennis Gardeck. And then last year they went out and got Joe Walker from the Philadelphia Eagles. So, 3 of those guys I'm talking about are really going to play on special teams. But I think Dennis Gardeck has earned the right maybe to get a couple snaps on defense. And obviously, if Hicks and Reddick are playing well, you got to wait your turn. But I think that they're comfortable and confident now they can put him in there.
Well, Gardeck certainly believes he's ready for that jump to the defensive side of the ball, as he told azcardinals.com on the latest episode of Groundwork what motivates him to put in the work in the offseason.
Dennis Gardeck, year 2, linebacker. What pushes me to put in the extra work in the offseason? Just knowing that I have to be ready to step in at a moment's notice. Understanding my role on the team and knowing that I might be asked to do a bunch of different things and that I have to be ready at the drop of a hat. What motivates me to be my best self? I would just say being curious about how far I can push myself. Just trying not to set any limitations on what I can or can't do, and just continuing to push. I'm just curious to see how far I can take myself. I was kind of like an undersized linebacker throughout the year, so I always had to rely on my strength to be able to hang with the big guys, and now I've put on a little bit of weight, so I want to do a little bit of bullying myself. They say championships are won in the off-season, and I think it just sets the tempo for the rest of the year. And if you're not sweating the small things now, then they're going to get lost as the year goes on and the season builds.
I'm actually looking forward to seeing what Gardeck can do. Give an opportunity, Zeke Turner as well, and then see how they do it when the ball is handed to them, so to speak. You know, can they run with it, or is it too big for them? But they have now a season under their belt, and try to throw a little bit more at him.
Yeah, and he's a prime example. We talk about guys from their first year, and he came in here as an undrafted free agent, and you're just trying to make the roster. And worst case scenario, you're looking at the practice squad, and Cardinals felt he was worthy of being a special teams player. But he's got the right attitude. I mean, push yourself, challenge yourself. I don't think anyone anticipated him to be a starting linebacker, but, you know, you're one play away if somebody gets injured, or, you know, it could be a uniform issue, chin strap, so you get a chance. But I think, as I said, I think they're comfortable with putting him in there now just because he's been in here, and it looks like he's more suited to play a 3-4. And you and I have touched on this, he can also play outside linebacker.
Yes, the ability to move around.
Ability to get to the quarterback. We talk about position flexibility. I don't know if they'll have him do it, but if you got Suggs and Jones out there, and then you got Reddick and Hicks, all of a sudden you can bring in another pass rusher and a guy that can win some one-on-one matchups, because he has that tenacity to win matchups based on his physicality and his toughness.
Overall here, just looking at the front seven of this 3-4 defense, as we go back to what Bill Davis had to say on Cardinals Underground, he is really, really impressed just looking at the first 7 guys, that 3-4 going into the regular season.
You know, right now we could play the season with the defenses we have in, and the guys have a great understanding of them. When you think of the Arizona Cardinal defense right now, first thing that comes to mind is aggressive. VJ and I both have been in this system before, and VJ's kind of tweaked it to, to his personality. It's a 3-4 attack and aggressive style defense, and the personnel that we have here is perfectly suited to what we're about to do. And we think it maximizes the strengths of the athletes in our defense. And I think Steve and the personnel department have done a phenomenal job giving us the tools that we were looking for to execute this defense.
Perfectly suited for the 3-4 defense. That's something you like to hear from a coach. Again, that was Coach Davis on Cardinals Underground. You can hear the entire interview by going to azcardinals.com/podcast. But good stuff from Coach Davis. His second stint with the Cardinals, former defensive coordinator back in the day, the NFC Championship, and, of course, the playoff run as well, all the way to the Super Bowl. But someone that these players will also learn from, not just, the defense suiting their needs, but someone who's got experience teaching them in that room.
Yeah, and that's something that maybe they didn't have last year. Coaching is about teaching and putting players in position to make plays. And, when I listen to him talk, he's kind of the voice of reason. And we know that this team had a hard time stopping the run last year. And so, guys got to win some one-on-one matchups. You got to stay in your gaps, and hopefully they can get teams off the field. But they're going to put a point of emphasis on first down. But there's no way you can go through an entire season, giving up close to 150 yards on the ground. I mean, time of possession, your defense gets tired. You got to rotate some of your backups, and you want to go with your starters for the majority of the game.
All right, time to move on to the secondary, and we'll start with the cornerbacks. There are 8 on the roster. Patrick Peterson, Robert Alford leading the way. And then you got the second-round draft pick Byron Murphy, along with Tremaine Brock, Nate Brooks, Chris Jones, Dietrich Nichols, and Brandon Williams. Perhaps the biggest question mark on this defense is the cornerback position. Peterson obviously is the standard bearer. 8 straight Pro Bowl appearances, and yeah, he is going to miss, bless you, by the way, MJ.
Thank you, sir.
He is going to miss the first 6 games of the regular season. He'll be eligible to return week 7 against the Giants. That is October 20th. But when he does return, I'm expecting a very motivated number 21.
Yeah, and I think I don't know if he's going to play in the preseason. You got to get some guys reps. I think he's going to be a coach out there. Obviously, they have Greg Williams, was in Denver along with Marcus Robertson. So I think he'll have to be a coach and be great for young guys to come to the sidelines during the game and say, what do you see? And maybe he can tell some guys what it's like to cover a wide receiver off press coverage, but they're definitely going to miss him. It's a huge loss for the franchise. Obviously, Patrick knows that everyone was disappointed in his decision, so you just got to move on, and I agree with you. He'll be motivated. Now the question becomes, we know that Robert Alford's going to start at one side. They released
David Emerson.
David Emerson, thank you. And that was kind of a surprise. So that means maybe Byron Murphy showed something, Tremaine Brock, Chris Jones. And then you're going to have to find a slot guy. And if Murphy doesn't win the outside job, maybe Murphy, you can hide him inside playing in the slot. Tremaine Brock has experience. So it's going to be interesting. So we know that Alford's a starter. Now it's a matter of how does it shake out. And I know people are down on Brandon Williams. Yes, he was not worthy of taking in the 3rd round. But he's become one of the better special teams players on the roster. And there's about 5 to 7 guys that just play on special teams. And we talk about it all the time when we get a low snap, a bad punt, or a missed field goal, all special teams. Well, it's a third of the game. And, I'm curious to see what Demir Byrd and Farrell Cooper can do on the return game for the most part. But again, corners got to learn to play either zone or press coverage, and that will give the defense a chance to get to the quarterback.
And I don't want to speak for you, but I don't think either one of us would be surprised if there is a name or two that gets added to this list at some point during training camp, just after maybe a couple of practices or a couple of preseason games. Hey, you know what? We're really not comfortable. We're not satisfied by what we have in this room, especially knowing that Peterson is going to be out. And his roster spot does not count against the 53, so you have that wiggle room, if you will, at least until Peterson gets back.
Yeah, and they brought in Maurice Claiborne when they brought in Tremaine Brock, and Brock obviously had a relationship with Vance Joseph playing there. He was in San Francisco and Minnesota for a year. And so Claiborne's more of an outside guy. He was a high draft pick with the Cowboys, as I mentioned. I don't mean to be redundant here. And then he played 31 games for the Jets in the last 2 years, stayed healthy. He's an outside guy, though. I think you're right. Maybe we get to a first week in camp. It's not so much the frontline guys. I think they're intrigued with, obviously, Alford, Byron Murphy, a high draft pick, and then Chris Jones, and then Dietrich Nicholas, and some other guys. But it wouldn't surprise me if we get a week into camp and they bring in somebody else just to get some depth because you don't have Patrick Peterson.
Well, it's a position they drafted with the Alford signing even before the start of free agency. This was right in the early goings of the offseason when Alford was released by the Falcons, and that move is looking better and better each and every day as we pass going into training camp and going into the regular season. And, of course, with the news that Patrick Peterson is going to miss the first 6 games of the regular season. But Alford did not have his best season in 2018. He freely admits it. He played on a bad ankle. He felt he owed it to the team to be there on Sunday, so he's looking to prove maybe himself and maybe prove everyone else that he is an elite corner, and the Cardinals believe that he is an elite corner. Cornerbacks coach Marcus Robertson back in mid-February, there was an introductory press conference for all the assistant coaches, and our executive producer Jim Omohundro had a chance to catch up with Coach Robertson, and he was very, very pleased of the fact that the Cardinals were able to land Alford.
I jumped out of my seat and I ran into BJ's office and I said, we need to bring this guy in. Worst case scenario, we need to bring him in, talk to him, see what's going on. First thing we did, we got together, we looked at the film, watched several games on him, and then we got him in here and we did all our homework. We talked to the guys down in Atlanta, obviously did all the medical things of that nature, make sure there wasn't any issues and anything of that nature. and we feel like it's a good fit for him. He felt like we were a good fit for him as well, and he's a top shelf corner in this league. He's got the size, the length, the speed, and he protects it. He coming from Atlanta, and they came from a Seattle system in Atlanta. They understand what knowing, to protect the post, not giving up the deep ball, and being able to be on the body at the top of routes and be able to finish at the point of attack. So there's some things that the elements of his game that he has that we already preach here.
So, again, Cardinals very excited about Alford, and we'll see what materializes during that rest of the cornerbacks room once the Cardinals get into State Farm Stadium and they start a training camp.
Yeah, one thing I try to do, getting a chance to be fortunate enough to cover these training camps over the years is that, every day I'll take a different position to look at. And this is going to be great competition. We look at the wide receivers after Kirk and Fitzgerald, and I know we're talking defense here. But there's going to be some great competition, who are the backups at some of these defensive line positions. We talked about the inside linebacker spot, outside. But really, somebody's going to have to step up, and they may get to start in week 1, and then all of a sudden maybe we're going to see a different guy. So if you're going out to training camp and free admission, free parking, get out of the heat. Make sure you check out the corners because it's going to be fascinating to see how it unfolds.
Yeah, 8 cornerbacks again on the roster and 8 safeties on the roster as well as we take a look at who is who. Of course, DJ Swearinger and Budda Baker, Rudy Ford, Deontay Thompson, Jonathan Owens, Josh Shaw, Tyler Sigler, and Jalen Thompson, whom the team just added this week in the supplemental draft. But, of course, when you look at the safety room, DJ Swearinger certainly stands out. He was with the Cardinals in 2015 and 2016. He was here last season, claimed off waivers when he was released by the Washington Redskins, but did not play in either of those final games. So he is certainly glad to be back. I'm glad that he is back because he does kind of give this defense something that it was missing last season, and that is, as you like to say at MJ, that dog, someone who is going to fight and not be afraid to get in the face of teammates and get in the face of opponents as well. And that always can also help out a team.
Yeah, and I think they were lacking this. Obviously you got some finesse guys that are out there and because they're playmakers, but I think Darius Philon, and you think of Terrell Suggs, and you think of DJ Swearinger, and there's probably others, whether it's a guy like, Brooks Reed. So, but I think, going into the season, they could keep 5 safeties, okay? And I think, we talked about Deontay Thompson, obviously dropped for a reason from Alabama, but we know that he's a hard hitter. But I think Jalen Thompson now is really a guy that they could rely on. So I think they'll keep 5. Josh Shaw is interesting. He can play safety. He can play corner. So curious to see flexibility there. But you look at your starters. Obviously, you got Swearinger, Budda Baker, and then Rudy Ford. He's kind of found a niche on special teams. And then you throw in a couple backups. It could be both Thompsons. Curious to see how many they'll address on game day.
And Budda Baker, by the way, excited because he's going back to his natural position. He was all smiles when that was brought up early in the offseason when everyone had a chance to talk with him. And here's someone that believes that he'll be able to get that first career interception. Hard to believe he doesn't have one. He has a touchdown, but he does not have a pick. And that's, to me, that's when you look at what he's been able to do so far, I think you're looking at, not so much a strength, but that safety room looks very, very good when you have Swearinger and Baker as kind of like your leaders and up front in front of everybody else.
Yeah, I got to get used to him wearing 32.
Yeah,
he wore 36.
He's used to it.
I'll figure it out. He wore it in high school. He was a running back, so but I think he's a solid player. There's a reason why the Cardinals moved up 9 spots to trade with the Bears. We talked about, playing at University of Washington under Jimmy Lake. So this is I like the tandem. A couple of years, they got a little long in the tooth with Tyvon Branch and then Antoine Bethea. And obviously Tyrann Mathieu was a free agent. He decided to move on now with the Chiefs. So I like this position. They just got to stay healthy, but I think they'll bring some dog to that position overall the course of the year.
And that is going to wrap up our individual position-by-position group here, the overview, if you will, as we head into training camp. But offense and defense looking very good, at least on paper right now. As we continue here on this Friday afternoon, Cards Cover 2 from the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center, broadcasting in our Bose QC35s. Go to Bose.com for more information. And if you ever miss a show, there is really no reason to miss a show, but if you do, you can download it as a podcast via Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play Music, TuneIn, and SoundCloud. And don't forget, all of your favorite Cardinals podcasts can be found at azcardinals.com/podcast. All right, before we hear from the Bird Gang and let them sound off, let's wrap up our tour of the NFC West. We've done the Rams and the Seahawks earlier in the week, and that leaves the 49ers. 4-12 last season, have not reached the postseason for the past 5 seasons, though there is reason to be excited. One is George Kittle, the tight end, but tops on that list is number 10, Jimmy Garoppolo. He's healthy. He will come into training camp ready to go. He was missed a lot of last season because of a torn ACL, but Garoppolo and George Kittle, who set the NFL record for receiving yards as a tight end, certainly have that 1-2 punch. And the question is, all right, what else do they have? They have a lot of weapons on the running backs. They have guys in there. The question is who materializes out of Matt Breida, Jerick McKinnon, and, of course, Tevin Coleman, who they acquired or signed as a free agent, played with the Falcons last season.
Well, I think they're going to go by committee. Obviously, Jerick McKinnon was a huge signing they got from the Vikings last year, and he got hurt in the preseason. Then we watched Matt Breida, and the problem was he couldn't stay healthy. You got to give him credit. He's trying to grind through. And then you mentioned Tevin Coleman. He's more of a guy that can catch the ball in the backfield, so I think it's going to be a three-headed monster. And listen, with the healthy Garoppolo, if he can play the entire season, I think this is a 7-9 team, maybe get to 8-8. Defensively, they went out and spent some money on the defense. They went out and got D Ford. Looks like he's going to play with his hand in the dirt. And then they got Quan Alexander, so it'd be interesting to see what their secondary looks like. But I think they're well coached, and when we start talking about some of these up-and-coming head coaches, play callers, I think you got to put Kyle Shanahan in the mix. Unfortunately, just haven't had the skill set and the health at the starting quarterback position.
Well, and then also defensively, drafting Nick Bosa.
Who's been cleared. He put out a video recently that I'm sure they're going to be cautious with him when it comes to training camp.
That's fine. I'm glad he's healthy and he's cleared. There's a big problem, though, with Bosa right now. He's not signed.
I know, and his brother held out.
I mean, training camp's right around the corner. I didn't look up when the 49ers report. I mean, it's okay. It's not a huge deal because these deals do get done, but there are a handful of guys that still haven't signed their contracts. And remember, Kyler Murray signed. The entire Cardinals draft class signed within days of what was it? Not rookie minicamp, but right after rookie minicamp.
Once you get the guys in town, then you start signing them.
He's been in town.
No, I'm saying for the Cardinals. They've done it over the last couple of years. Once the rookies get here, they start signing, whether it's the first pick, the fourth-round pick, and then they get all 11 done. The Bosa family, I mean, his brother held out, and they've had injuries, and I'm sure there were some red flags when it came to the medical. I know he didn't finish his collegiate season, but, yeah, I mean, to me it's slotted. I don't understand. I mean, I'm sure it's about language. Matter of fact, if you make 2 Pro Bowls or all pros, then obviously you can go back to the table, but it's slotted. I mean, they're going to pick up your 5th-year option if you're the player they panned out to be. So from that standpoint, I think it's disappointing that he better not miss any practices. Now, again, I think they're going to be cautious with him, but at this point in time, everyone should be signed. It's the slotted system is prevents guys from holding out. We've had guys hold out for years, and then the last baby boomer was Sam Bradford. He made $50 million guaranteed, and the next year was Cam Newton, $25. So I don't understand these guys holding out. I understand they don't have a lot of leverage once they sign the contract, but go in there and play football. Prove yourself. What a concept.
You're done.
Yeah, but I just think it's ridiculous.
No, I know. I got you.
Because we had holdouts and, L.J. Shelton, Wendell Bryan. The Cardinals were concerned Terrell Suggs would be a holdout. So, I mean, it's not a good thing in the NFL. So I just think guys need to come in and prove yourself. I understand what he's trying to do, and I think he'll be there at training camp.
All right, let's, without further ado, have the Bird Gang sound off on this Friday afternoon. Your questions via social media using the hashtag #CardsCover2. We'll begin with a couple of questions from Twitter. In fact, it's 2 questions from the same user at Mando112155 wants to know who's starting to become the number 3 receiver for the Cardinals.
Well, I mean, just to guess, we're only based it on off-season workouts. I think Keyshawn Johnson, but I think Andy Isabella and Hakeem Butler, but I think they're all behind Larry Fitzgerald, Christian Kirk, and then keep an eye on Demir Byrd and Farrell Cooper, and then Trent Sherfield's more of a special teams guy. So I know we're all intrigued with this rookie class, but I think we got to be patient. But I would say right now, Keyshawn Johnson.
And I mentioned he had 2 questions. Winning the second-string cornerback battle so far.
Well, Amerson was running with the first string, but I think right now Byron Murphy, Tremaine Brock, and then Chris Jones have an opportunity to win that job. But it's going to be fluid because if you struggle in week 1 or 2, they'll find somebody else.
Absolutely. Bird Gang sounding off now on YouTube. Isaac Dreher wants to know, do you believe there should be more national attention on the Cardinals?
I think there is. The fact that the NFL already come out and give them 3 national preseason games. Again, if this team shows their worth, maybe they'll get flexed out late in the year. I mean, I don't know if that's realistic, but you got to win some games. But I think the national media will be in full force when it comes to training camp and the preseason.
Yeah, it helps if you're being successful on Sundays, and of course that always garners attention. Kenneth Cisneros wants to know, what role do you expect Hassan Reddick to have? Will he have a breakout year? And we talked a little bit earlier in the show about Reddick, but he is going to be your starting inside linebacker next to Hicks.
Yeah, I mean, I was torn between him and Budda Baker. I think Budda Baker's shown his upside so far, and going back to his natural position. I can say that Reddick needs to have a breakout year. Obviously, he's not on the bubble or anything. They feel comfortable moving forward, but it'd be nice to see him make plays. And again, he's going to be a 3-down backer. I think Hicks will help him out. I think that front 3 will help him out. So, yeah, I'm anticipating big things from him.
More questions from the Bird Gang via YouTube. Chief Hawkwin wants to know, how do you think the offensive line will hold up this year?
It's a great question. It's the unknown from the standpoint of they went out and got veteran guys. They got some depth based in the draft. Lamar Gilliard, they got Corey Cunningham, Mason Cole, Max Garcia. So if they could stay healthy, I think they'll be productive. And the fact is that Murray gets rid of the ball so quick, he won't take those hits that Carson Palmer and Drew Stanton took a few years ago.
Got a question about special teams here from Noah. Wants to know who the return specialists are this season.
Well, in off-season workouts during the open portion, it was Demir Byrd, Farrell Cooper, and Andy Isabella. I don't know if they want Christian Kirk, considering he could be the number 1 or 2 receiver returning punts this year. So I think one of those guys could make the roster based on that, and Demir Byrd and Farrell Cooper have shown something from the wide receiver position. So good choices there, and maybe Andy Isabella will get a chance.
Last question from YouTube, Stotcher92. Greetings from Austria.
Very nice.
Appreciate you paying attention. Mate. Mentions I watch every single episode of Cardinals Cover 2. Again, appreciate that. Are you expecting a big step for wide receiver Christian Kirk coming off his foot injury?
Yeah, and now the national media's got a hold of it. So we mentioned it a few weeks ago. I think Ron Wolfley also mentioned it. Yeah, I mean, Christian Kirk, he played 12 games last year. He looked the part. People question his size and speed, and I think he quieted the critics there. I anticipate big things from him, considering he's played in this system at Texas A&M.
Yeah, he's right now your number 2 wide receiver, and for a big part of last season, at least for me, he was your number 1 receiver. He had that connection with Josh Rosen.
Yeah, and I think it's because he was practicing with Rosen. That when you come in with your rookie class, you spend more time, and maybe that's the case with Murray, with Keyshawn Johnson, Andy Isabella, and possibly Hakeem Butler.
All right, let's move over as the Bird Gang sounding off now on Facebook Live. Dale Shepard, what's one position that can still be improved this offseason?
I would think outside linebacker, because right now I'm comfortable with Jones, Suggs, and Brooks Reed. Curious to see how much Reed does in the preseason. Cameron Melville is out there. I think they can upgrade that position. And then I think depending on what happens opposite of Robert Alford, that's another position. So this team is not satisfied. Anybody available that gets released, they have a grade on that guy, and then they decide to bring him in or not.
All right, we'll leave the Bird Gang with this final question. This became a topic earlier in the day. Tommy Murray wants to know, what are your thoughts on the proposal of an 18-game season?
Well, I'm in favor of it, but I'm not in favor of players only playing in 16 games. I think that's nonsense. I think the league is going to try to go maybe with 8 home games, 8 road games, and maybe you play 1 game overseas, so that's a 17-game schedule. But I'm in favor of 18. Give them 2 bye weeks, and the Super Bowl would be a week later than your normal first Sunday in February. So the season wouldn't be pushed back that far. You're looking at 6 months from September to February. So I'm all for it. Now, do they extend the rosters on game day because some team will have 53 healthy guys and some team will have 51? Do they expand the rosters maybe to 58 where you're allowed to dress 51, 52? So I need to know more details, but I'm intrigued with the thought process.
Yeah, and the background here is not an official proposal, just something that was kind of thrown out there and discussed, just an 18-game schedule, but you would only play 16. I mean, there's 18 games, but players would only suit up for 16 of those games. So you'd kind of have to figure out what. I mean, it's
we're going to squash this right now.
Yeah, I don't see that happening.
No, what are you going to do? And for give you an example, the Browns come here this year. They haven't played in Glendale or in Arizona in 8 years. So if you're going to buy tickets to see Odell Beckham and Baker Mayfield and you go to that game, listen, Mark Murphy, the president, came out today because the Packers are publicly owned, and he had to talk about the numbers, and he said that will not happen in the National Football League. If we're going to 18 games, you're going to play all 18 games. So we can squash that right now, Grialou. You don't have to go worried about it over the weekend. It's not going to happen.
I appreciate that. My weekend just got a little bit better. I thank you very much for that. And thank you, the Bird Gang, for signing off here on this Friday afternoon. Love hearing from you locally, throughout the states, and, of course, internationally as well. Always appreciating. Keep those Cardinal questions coming using the hashtag CardsCover2, hashtag CardsCover2.
How about our guy Grant Greeley behind the glass?
Appreciate Grant.
He's been by himself. Now, next week we get everyone back,
Except for me.
Hold on. I guess everyone, I should have included that. The Darren Urbans, the Kyle Odegaards.
People will start making their way back here.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden you're gone, but you'll be ready for training camp.
Absolutely.
But
my reporting date is a little bit different than everyone else's.
Yeah, I got you. I'm going to see the rookies next week maybe. They'll be walking around.
And then quarterbacks and injured players a week from today.
That's right. And I've walked through the locker room the last couple of days. There are veteran players here working out.
Yeah, it's good to see.
Yeah, because a lot of guys are probably, still at their hometown having fun, which they should. But the grind's going to start a couple weeks from now.
Appreciate everyone's involvement in today's show. We mentioned Grant Greeley, yeoman's work, doing 2 jobs.
You got to mention him a few more times.
Grant Greeley?
Yeah, Grant Greeley. All
right. We gave him an open mic, and he just, he's a little shy.
I get it. I mean, the more he works with us, he gives us pointers.
Yes. Good job. Good man.
He showed up at our cubicle today saying, hey, why don't you guys do this? And we know what he said? Good idea, Grant.
We gave him props. Appreciate his help. Tim Delaney, Jim Alejandro, Jackson Sipes, my partner Mike Jurecki. I'm Craig Grialou. Enjoy your weekend. This has been Cards Cover 2.